Hello everyone, how's it going? Hope you're having a wonderful day. So I want to open this video with a quote from a former professor of mine from Brooklyn College, Andrew Meyer. He said, "I don't care whether I agree with you or not. I care whether you can argue your point correctly." Nowadays, it's more about whoever has the most TikTok followers and who has the best memes or yells a lot, but it's still something that I hold dear in terms of how I live my life when it comes to arguing things that I care about. And Star Wars Outlaws is a game that has become hugely negatively received since the story trailer released. It's coming out later this year on August 30th. And I want to go through all the points of why this game is negatively received. Now, if you want to argue against that, that's great. You should be able to argue and voice your concerns of anything I state that probably isn't right, or maybe it's just argued improperly. So let's go through all the issues of why this game is so negatively received. The first thing is the fact that the game requires an internet connection for you to play the game on day one, after which you could play the game offline. Now, this is a single player game, meaning that for you to play this single player game, you need to first access the online server to download the rest of the game. Now, this was present in Halo Infinite and Starfield, and it's becoming an increasingly difficult issue when it comes to game ownership. A lot of companies are attempting to remove ownership of media. Movies are also affected by this, books, everything, and basically just giving you a license to access that content, and they can remove it at any time. Sony was removing content that you paid for. There is Ubisoft with The Crew, where they're removing access to The Crew, despite the fact you can own a copy of that game, and there is an offline function for that game. Mudahar did a video on that. So this idea of you owning your products is becoming increasingly more concerning. And there was this dumbass that I said, well, technically you have to download games from Steam, so all games are internet required. You know, idiots like that, which are just profoundly dumb. Like, for example, there's going to be a physical release of Baldur's Gate 3 on the PC. You can put that game into a disk drive on your PC and play the entirety of that game without needing the internet connection. Look, I get that PC gamers have become more accustomed to digital downloads. Heck, PCs don't even have a mandatory disk drive anymore. You have to buy an optional item for that. But it's becoming more apparent that people are losing their accounts either through false banning, hacking, and other issues. And if you lose access to your account, all your games go with it. It's in the terms of service for Steam, Nintendo, Xbox, PlayStation. You lose access to your account, you lose access to all of that. However, if you have a physical edition of the game, they can't take this away from you. And that's something that I think a lot of people have just become so accustomed to nowadays, and they like the ease and convenience of that, which is fine. Digital games are much more convenient. By the way, digital games used to cost less before, they started to think, hey, we can charge the same amount for a physical game and just reap all the profits. So yeah, with this consideration, the fact that you're buying a single-player physical edition of this game requiring an internet connection should be concerning to you. Don't be that idiot who's like, well, Steam, you have to download this stuff. That doesn't matter. The fact you bought a physical copy either on PlayStation, Xbox, whatever, you should have access to that game when it's offline. Like multiplayer games, I kind of understand. Live service games, understandable. But even Halo Reach, like if you bought an Xbox 360 version of that game, you can access all the functions. Multiplayer, co-op play, the campaign, everything is accessible. You can play split-screen multiplayer on Halo Infinite, no problem, which is also becoming a luxury nowadays. Now everyone needs to own a copy of the game, and you can't play split-screen for some reason. It's just the infinite logical loops that you have to go through with these people that just amplifies their level of dumbassery. But yeah, this is becoming an increased issue, and Accursus Farms, he has a great video, I'll leave this link below, where he goes into detail about how people are losing access to their games, and there is really no consumer protections behind this, and there should be. Like, if you paid $70 for a game, you should have access to that game if you have a physical edition of the game. Heck, even if you have a digital edition of the game. For example, I did a video on Spec Ops: The Line. It's been delisted off Steam, so you can't buy that game anymore. Granted, if you purchased the game like I did, you can still download the game from Steam, but you can no longer buy it. Same thing for games like Spider-Man: Edge of Time, Transformers: War for Cybertron. Those are licensed games that once the license has expired, can't access the game, and if you want to play the game, you're going to have to fork over like $70, $80, sometimes $120 off a third-party seller because that's the only way you can access those games, and it's utter stupidity. That, or you use emulation, or you sail the seas. I can't say what that word is, but you know what I'm talking about. So yeah, that's the first argument against this game. Second argument is the way the character looks. Now, beauty is in the eyes of the beholder. There are some people who find certain characters appealing and other characters unappealing. For example, I think Faye from Forspoken is a very beautiful woman. Like, a lot of people disagree with that. That's fine. That's your prerogative. But I can't argue the fact against this character, Kay Vess, who is the protagonist of Star Wars Outlaws, looks nothing like the main character that's been the voice actor of the character. So this is the voice actor of the character, Humbly. And you can see from this comparison shot what the hell happened here. Like, you can see that the face is much more rounded, the mouth is a lot smaller, the nose I feel like has been pushed up, but she's looking up and Humbly is looking down. But you're looking at this and you're like, what the hell happened here? Like, the hair I can understand, she's an outlaw, so keep the hair short so people don't grab it, like Lee Everett stated. But yeah, these characters, it's like, what the hell happened? And this isn't new technology. Back on the Xbox 360 with Star Wars The Force Unleashed, here is the voice actor for Starkiller. Look at this. They look one-to-one. This is on the Xbox 360. So what the hell happened here? Like, these two characters look almost similar to one another, that they've become, you know, indistinguishable. Same thing for, I should have looked this up before the video, but GTA 5, Trevor and Michael. They look exactly like the characters. And you can also see here for a female character, Mass Effect 2 and 3. This is the Xbox 360 version. Look at this. Miranda looks just like her voice actor. What's the problem here? So you see, this technology has existed for a very long time. And when you start to compare Western developed games, such as this is one of the more notorious examples for the upcoming Fable game, look at this. This is the voice actress. This is the character model. Someone had to purposely, like, make this character look like this in comparison to the voice actor. Look at this. Like, you can't make the argument here. And then there's Nicole from Dead Space. Now, I've made the argument that I actually prefer the remake version of Dead Space's Nicole, because the one on the right looks like a 20-year-old medical student, whereas the one on the left looks like an actual senior medical officer. Granted, Isaac looks a lot younger in the Dead Space remake, but with this, I kind of understand where they were going for, because like I stated, the left side looks like a senior medical officer of someone of a big ship like the Ishimura, and the one on the right looks like someone who just got out of medical school and is right now doing her residency. So maybe with this it's a little less apparent, but nevertheless, you know, it's starting to become a little more hard to argue against. And you can also see this with Aloy. She's also another prominent example. On the left, you can see her from Horizon Zero Dawn, and on the right, you can see from Horizon Forbidden West. Granted, the argument here is that she's become a little more matured in this game, but the games only take place, I think, only about a year apart. But yeah, this is a massive transformation. Her face is so much more rounded and everything, so it's like, how did this happen? It's a little more weird, because even though I argued on the pro of the right side because she looks a lot more muscled considering she's fighting, you know, robot dinosaurs, but it's just such a massive change between the two characters that it's becoming harder to unnotice. And when you look at Japanese developed games such as Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, you can see like Aerith and Tifa actually look like very idealized feminine characters. Like, again, these are ones and zeros. They're animated in a way that makes them look perfect. For example, Sid is supposed to be a 35-year-old man, but he looks like he's in his 50s. So Japanese developed products tend to be a little more, you know, exaggerated of how the characters look. Cloud is 21, despite the fact that he looks like he's in his late 20s or early 30s. But, you know, nevertheless, yeah, you can see the comparison here is a little more out there. You can also see here, this is Throne from Octopath Traveler 2. Criminally underappreciated game, my game of the year of last year. But you can see this is official artwork for her. And, you know, yeah, this is a pixelated game. This is a 2D turn-based pixelated game, but this is how she's supposed to look like if they were to make her 3D. So yeah, another example of Japanese and what Japanese developers, and we're going to look at Korean developers developing their women to look radically different in comparison to whatever Ubisoft is doing here. And another example would be the more notorious example happening recently with Stellar Blade. I can't remember the person who went around Washington Square talking to random women about how this is an unrealistic standard despite the fact it's based off a Korean model. They had a 3D scan. They made it public earlier this year. But, there are still people who are stating ludicrous things like, this type of body is making women unalive themselves. Like, I told my friend Jennifer about this, and she was just like, there's no way there are people that stupid. But, when I told her the entire situation, she was just like, it's a fictional character. Like, yeah, but, people are trying to make these leaps of logic. And I think it's making actually a positive turn on Stellar Blade. More people are talking about this game more than ever. I think the game is great. It's like a combination of Nier, Bloodborne, and Scarlet Nexus, which is every game I've loved so far. Now, the next argument is the pricing model for Star Wars Outlaws. And this is not something that's new with Ubisoft. You can see here with Assassin's Creed Odyssey, and you need a freaking chart to understand what edition does what. And this has just become such a concern with Ubisoft. They've kind of like streamlined the process, but it's become increasingly more problematic. You can see here, $70 gets you the pre-order bonus and the base game. The gold edition, which is $110, gets you 3-day early access pre-order bonus and the season pass, which is nothing new for games nowadays. Like, season passes exist. The issue is that one of the missions is unlocked on day 1, which a lot of people have concern about, like this right here. The Java Gambit exclusive mission available at launch. Now, this isn't anything new. Hogwarts Legacy actually did this with the PlayStation edition of the game, where there was a mission that was a 1-year exclusive, and you can only access it by playing the PlayStation version of the game. So this isn't anything new, but this right here is what people have concern about. Why is this content being isolated through this type of edition? Like, if it was a pre-order bonus, is it? No. If it was a pre-order bonus for an exclusive mission, I can kind of understand that, because developers make deals with publishers, specifically like Sony and Microsoft, to have exclusive content to push people to buy that edition of the game. But in this case, it's like literally locking off a day 1 access content, day 1 content with this stuff. Like, I don't have any problem with post-launch content being a season pass thing. That's nothing new. Witcher did it. Borderlands did it. Lots of game companies do this, but that's what a lot of people I feel like are more concerned about this. Like, if this was a pre-order bonus, I can see that as a more plausible argument, even though it would be kind of scummy, but nevertheless, that's it. The other is the Ultimate Edition for $130, where you don't even get any physical content. Like, you get a digital art book. You don't even get a physical art book. It's like this. And then, of course, you have the Ubisoft Plus membership, which gives you everything this has here for $18 a month, which they're really trying to push with this type of system, even though it costs more than Xbox Ultimate Game Pass. So, yeah, they're really trying to push you towards the Ubisoft subscription service, which there was that infamous quote from one of the Ubisoft executives where they're trying to ease people to not owning their products, because that's what Netflix kind of made more common. Amazon Prime, a lot of these streaming services where TVs, shows, and movies have become less about ownership and more about you just watching them on streaming services. And now even companies like Best Buy are removing physical media off their shelf because, people have become so accustomed with digital media when it comes to TV shows and movies. And you guarantee that game publishers are trying to do the same, because if they do that, they can resell you the product at a later date with an updated remaster. That's kind of what Nintendo does with their products. You want to play Pokemon Red? Well, you have to buy the Nintendo Switch Online Premium service if you want access to it whenever they put it on the system, or Pokemon Silver. I guarantee you they're going to do that. So that's the other concern when it comes to it. And again, you can see here with the Assassin's Creed Ultimate Edition, where you at least got like a statue and a bunch of physical edition bonuses. So yeah, just another issue with that. The next argument is the state of Ubisoft right now. Now, Ubisoft has not been, great when it comes to their recent game releases. The most recent being the first quadruple A game, Skull and Bones, which you can see here by just the overall review score, has been plummeted. We don't have numbers for this game, but I did a video on it, how it hasn't even crossed 1 million players despite having an 8-hour free trial on PC. So, yeah, not exactly a good track record in recent memories, and you can see this for their many other releases, Far Cry 6, Skull and Bones again, Assassin's Creed Mirage, and yeah, their games have not been positively received. I should have probably looked up Prince of Persia, but Rainbow Six Siege has apparently been doing well despite reviews and critics being pretty low, but a lot of people like the latest season, according to what I've seen. But yeah, it's just becoming more increasingly problematic. So I decided to cut here and look up Prince of Persia. It's actually doing pretty well. A lot of people like this game. I haven't played it because, I just didn't have the time and it didn't really appeal to me. There is a brand new Prince of Persia game coming out from the creators of Dead Cells, so that might be good. We'll see how that is executed, but you can also see what Assassin's Creed Mirage hears from Metacritic, not exactly glowing reviews. It was kind of painfully average. Granted, this was a DLC expansion sold at $50, but whatever. But the biggest issue, I would argue, is the loss of identity. Now, Ubisoft game has become basically a universal phrase that people now understand when they hear that. Basically, open world game with lots of towers and very tedious side missions. For example, Far Cry 6 was like that, Assassin's Creed Mirage was like that, and Watch Dogs Legion was like that. I played all these games. You can see here from my channel, these games all had the same systems, and basically Ubisoft game has become more or less just a term for people to default on what the game is going to be entirely about. So you can just make the argument that a lot of people are expecting Star Wars Outlaws to be that game where it's just, another open world game with a bunch of bland objectives with no real, hook to them. They're not bad, but they're not great, and you just know what you're getting, to the point that it's become such a meme that people are expecting it to happen, and they've just become very tired of it because a lot of games have executed these same systems that they've lost their entire identity. Ghost Recon, Watch Dogs, even though the games did share similar open world elements since the foundation of these IPs, they still have problems of maintaining that isolated identity that keeps these franchises alive. So even though Assassin's Creed has always been an open world game, the fact they just picked and choose that to fill Far Cry's entire system and then use that same system for Ghost Recon, people have just felt like these games aren't the games that we once loved and now have become entirely new games that just copy and paste themselves. And yeah, even though there's been a new report that just came out that they won't feature any towers, and to the point that, they're aware of these memes, it doesn't make it any better the fact that it's still going to have the same systems. The fog maps just clear up normally as you explore each world. So there could be an entire system where they still have these types of exploration systems, they just modify them slightly. Because it leads to the next big issue, which is microtransactions. Now, Ubisoft games are notorious for their microtransactions, especially their single-player microtransactions, which have become such a staple where they remove cosmetics and gear, which should be in the game, and put them into the store. And usually these are very alluring items that you simply cannot get into the game, such as with Assassin's Creed Unity, they had a weapon which would basically just make the game easy at that point, where you can just destroy everything in one hit. They have resource packs which make experience gathering a lot easier. For example, in Assassin's Creed Odyssey, there was an issue where experience was gathered at such a snail pace that it kind of encourages you to get the experience booster. In fact, they give you a free experience booster. It's like the first taste is free, and if you don't have that, it just feels like it's a long, extensive grind just to get to the last portion of the game or the next story portion of the content. And it doesn't also help the resource packs and all this stuff. A lot, even though the game is not going to have towers, you can expect that they're probably going to have a microtransaction which reveals everything on the map. For example, you can find all the side content, all the places of interest, stuff, staples within open world games. And it's just a concern that a lot of people rightfully have. Like, here's the Assassin's Creed Mirage store, and you can see here a lot of the stuff you can get in the game, and it just looks super cool. So a lot of people are concerned that this is just going to be something that they're going to have to deal with, where we're going to have another Assassin's Creed Odyssey situation where a lot of the game is going to be a grind. This is just my opinion on it, because it's happened so many times that it's expected that you're going to have some sort of situation where it feels grindy, and they're going to sell you the solution in terms of maybe experience boosters, map reveals, resource packs, stuff like that. So those are all the pressing concerns I have with Star Wars Outlaws. The facial structure of the character, the microtransactions, the fact you need to install a day one internet patch in order to access the single player game, the massive, store system and all of that. So if I missed anything, or you want to counter argue against all these points, feel free to do all of that. I would love to hear other people's opinions, especially the people with that guy with the Steam argument. That's his argument towards it. Even though I think it's completely stupid, it's still his argument. But I would love to hear what other people think of this. I love to hear from other people's opinions and get different perspectives. So if something I missed, something I'm not understanding, something that I'm just not seeing from another perspective, but just tell me what you think. I know this video is a bit long and I had to make cuts because my voice were dying, but hopefully you enjoyed it. If you didn't, dislike the video. If you enjoyed it, liking does help, sharing, sub and all that social media stuff, but you're not under any obligation. Do what you want. Either way, that's the video, and bye.